Γεια σου, Ηράκλειο. Hello, everyone. I'm Fotis Adamakis. As you can tell from my surname, I'm local. I was born and raised not far from here, but I have been away for many years now, almost 20, the last 5 in Barcelona. So I didn't even know that this place existed. It makes me so happy to have an international conference hosted here in Heraklion. I hope it's the first of many to come. I've been around the whole day. I have seen a lot of talks. I learned a lot of things. My talk will be different, a bit more lightweight, since we're approaching the end of the day. We'll try to predict the future of front-end development. And I say we because I want your help. I want you to be open-minded and make your own prediction. At the end, we will have some time for discussion. So yeah, let's get started. How do we predict the future? Apparently, it's not an easy thing to do. There is a saying that we always overestimate what can happen in a year and underestimate what can happen in 5 years. Imagine 15 years that this talk is about. There are many different ways to predict the future. One is the palm of our hand. It's a line representing different aspects of our lives. Then we have fire. Ancient Greeks believed that we can see the future through fire, where there were many oracles across the country that you could get a very dubious prediction about the future that often led to wars and sacrifices. The most famous one was, of course, Pythia in Delphi. Then we have the stars. I'm a Taurus, so I should expect financial success this month in my life. I'm still waiting for something to change this month. Then we have many more things like tarot cards, or by far my favorite one, which is coffee. You can tell the future only here in Greece by Greek coffee. You drink your cup, you put it upside down, and then at the bottom you will see some markings that can tell your destiny and your future. And this, I think, it's the most interesting, so this is what I'm going to use today. No, not really. First of all, you can only find Freddo Espresso nowadays, as you have noticed here in Iraklio, so we'll have to take a more pragmatic approach. I will start with a book recommendation, Algorithms to Live By, very popular among developers. It says how to apply every programming algorithms to solve everyday problems, like how much time you search for a parking spot, how much time when you go to your favorite restaurant, when you try something new, how to be productive, and of course, how to predict the future. This is a big chapter, backed with a lot of math. I will make a simplified version here. In order to predict what will happen in 2040, we have to go 15 years back and assume we are in the middle of evolution. Of course, evolution is never linear. There are ups and downs, innovations and lack of innovations. But if we see the big picture, we can assume that we are in the middle of it. So this is actually the agenda for today. We'll spend some time seeing how front-end development was back in 2010, then only a few minutes for front-end development today. I hope being in a tech conference, you are more or less aware of what's happening today in the front-end ecosystem. So then we will have much better context to do a lot better guesses, or as I say here, educated guesses. And then I have a very short survival kit at the end on how to stay relevant as a front-end engineer in the next 15 years. And the discussion, as I said before. So let's get started with front-end development in 2010. This is when I started my career, so I have a lot of memories back then. Everything was very, very primitive and very much simpler back then. Everything was a div, everything was an input type text. We didn't have support for video or audio. We had to do Flash and Silverlight for that. And table layouts were around. It was not the most popular way of doing layouts, but it was still there. You had to know it, unless you were doing event templates, which was the only thing that worked back then. So yeah, everything was very primitive. Everything was a div. If you had something special, you used an ID. If not, if it was something reusable, you used in the class. This is the only thing that I remember from back then. Nothing was semantic. Nothing was accessible. Then we have CSS, again, very primitive. Everything was coded with floats, and you could see the clearfix hack everywhere. Then it was very common to have a fixed width of 90-60 pixels and do your coding inside there. If you wanted a different experience for the mobile, because iPhone 4 was just released, so it was getting some traction. So it was very common to have a different code base and detect it on the server side and deliver the different website on those devices. And if you want to use it, something from CSS3, which was a draft still, it was not widely supported or standardized yet, but it was there, it was coming. You had to use a lot of prefixes, which made the code much more dirty. The same with HTML5. It was coming, but it was not yet standardized. This is why we had to rely a lot of preprocessors to do things like variables, nesting, mixins, and modularity. This was something essential back then. It's still, they are still around, but many things are reaching the language nowadays, which is a pattern that we will see a lot during this talk. Many things that we relied on third parties, nowadays they reach the language itself. So this is something to have in mind when we are predicting the future. JavaScript is also night and day. We had to manage namespace ourselves, which was a big difference. The modules were not self-contained back then, so we had to do immediately invoked functions. We had to manage to have a global object to hold out global state. Variables were function scoped. We didn't have arrow functions, so you could, in order to keep track of the outer scope, you had to do the self equals this hack. State was held in the cookies, and local storage and schedule storage were not around yet. And believe it or not, backend communication was done with XML. JSON was about to become much more popular, but not yet. In 2010, the most common way was XML, which I never got used to it. This is why we had to rely a lot on third-party libraries like underscore to do a lot of things like inheritance. I spent my whole university years learning about inheritance, and in JavaScript we didn't have classes. We had to mock them with prototypes. And again, loops, many things were not built into the language. That's why we had to rely on underscore. Again, nowadays it's not rather relevant, not because it was not a good library, because the JavaScript evolved and provides many things natively to us. And of course, now it's time to talk about jQuery. jQuery was a huge thing back then. It was used in almost every application, active development. It simplified DOM manipulation, it simplified cross-browse and bridged the gaps between browsers. It simplified AJAX calls. It was very lightweight and very easy to increasingly adopt it. And it was backed with a lot of communities. That's why it became so popular. Another thing that was not that popular, but it was the first idea of having a reusable UI and components. Back then was jQuery UI. Again, not very popular, but it was the first idea of not rewriting the tabs and modals when you needed something new. And it also supported theming, which was the first idea of having something like this in the front-end development. It looks like this, a bit outdated nowadays, but again, this was back in 2010. Having border radius and gradient was not really a thing. It was not easy. For example, having a button like this was very hard to do. We had to rely on images, especially if we wanted the text to be dynamic. We had to use 3 images, actually, left, right part, and 1 pixel on repeat in the middle, which made things not that performant. Another big difference is the build tools. There was not really build tools available for us. We had to do a lot of manual steps and manual minifications, manual module bundling as well. We didn't have an NPM. This was a big difference. I remember that I had to go to a website, download jQuery or jQuery UI, and include it myself in the page after copy-pasting the file into the code base myself. I also had to manage the order of the scripts, which was not easy. It was not on our side back then, the building process. Testing was also very primitive, very manual steps a lot. Jasmine and Cinnamon was released on 2010, but it was not yet getting a lot of traction. It will become very popular later, but for then, mostly we were doing manual testing of the feature you developed and broke everything else along the way. No automation, not UI testing as well. This is another list of all my favorite AI tools of back then. Nothing really, back in 2010. And Adobe Flash was also a big thing. I already said that Video and audio was not supported natively from the browser, so we had to rely on Adobe Flash, and every popular and impressive website of 2010 was built on Adobe Flash, which is strange. It was not, though, you needed a third-party SDK, first of all. Then it was not responsive, it was not performant, it was not accessible, it was very hard to debug. So something that was so essential back then, nowadays you cannot even run it on Chrome, which is a good thing, but yeah, something to have in mind again when we are predicting the future, something so essential back then, it's not around anymore. And the browsers. Internet Explorer was dominating. It was used more than 50% of websites. It was used in all of the price. Downloading a different browser was not really a thing. Even if you download it to one of your friends, probably they will just search for Internet Explorer icon because that's the icon you access the web with. But Internet Explorer was terrible to work with. If you remember, if you were working back then, it has a lot of problems. Even box model didn't work properly. So yeah, we had to, it was an interesting state that everyone was using Internet Explorer, but developers were all using Firefox or other browsers except Internet Explorer. And this is something, again, we will notice when we make our predictions. If something is essential nowadays and everyone is using it, maybe if we don't like it, maybe in the future will die. Yeah, code editors as well. Probably you are not using any of these today, so maybe the code editor you are using today, it will not be around in 2040. So yeah, this was more or less what's happening in 2010. If you asked me back then what I should expect from the future, I would probably say jQuery taking over of JavaScript, maybe, more jQuery UI plugins, better jQuery UI themes, Firefox taking over, maybe. I had a lot of things in my blind spot back then, and this is not what happened, of course. In 2010, at the end of the year, we had 3 big frameworks introduced to us: Knockout, AngularJS, and Backbone. That changed a lot how we are doing front-end development. Actually, until then, even if JavaScript was the only thing you knew, probably your title on LinkedIn would be web developer, because it was expected from us to do everything from all the way to the database to the client. This changed a lot. It added a lot of complexity on the client. It introduced reactivity, introduced client-side rendering, combined with responsive web design, which was also introduced to us in 2010 by this article from Ethan Marcotte, made us thinking in responsiveness and components that react to our screen size instead of having different and adaptive experience to our users. This also introduced a lot of complexity to CSS. That's why many of us started doing only front-end development from then. So this is the recap. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript were very primitive. We had to rely a lot on jQuery and underscore to do something that's now essential. And the tooling was also very, very primitive. We had a lot of things in our blind spots. Front-end was about to boom in the next years. Grunt and Bootstrap will take over everything and make us do a lot of development with them and make front-end a job itself, which leads us to today. Today, front-end is much, much more complicated, but also much more powerful. We have powerful tooling on our side. We have a framework-driven architecture. Every code base now uses a framework. We have routing, state management, data fetching, and rendering logic on our side. Let's dive a bit deeper with the main building blocks, which is HTML5, CSS3, and JavaScript. HTML5 has a lot of semantic elements on our side, and a lot of, we have modern form controls, we have native APIs for media, and it's performance-friendly. CSS is also very much more powerful, with Flexbox being the best way to do layouts. I'm very happy with it. Mobile first is our mindset, and a lot of enhancements on our side, again, to do a better experience and easier development. Then we have JavaScript, which is also day and night. A lot of, first of all, ES6 modules are not leaking. The variables are not leaking outside our modules anymore, which is a big improvement. We don't have to manage the namespace ourselves. We have a way to solve the callback hell. We have arrow functions, classes, and a lot of native APIs like fetch and web workers and web sockets. It's becoming better, performance is becoming better with every iteration. And it's reaching the server side as well, which is something nice to have. We are in the TypeScript era. There is a survey that I will share later that 2 out of 3 developers are writing more TypeScript than JavaScript, which is very encouraging. And we are, as I said before, in a front-end framework. I will switch now to State of JS. It's the survey, very popular among developers. You probably have seen this. This is the last version. We can see some screenshots of what's happening now, and we can also see the evolution over time. I highly encourage you to take part and read it in your spare time. First of all, we have not this, but this. Sorry. First of all, as I said before, 2 out of 3 responders said that they use more TypeScript than JavaScript, which is very encouraging. The missing features of JavaScript. By far, the first one is static typing. I believe it's long overdue to have static typing into the language. We rely heavily on TypeScript nowadays to do this. The gap between JavaScript and TypeScript is not that big anymore. It's only static typing, I believe. It used to be day and night again when in the past we didn't have classes and TypeScript provided this. But for now, the gap is way smaller. You should use TypeScript. I'm not against it. Don't take me wrong. But again, maybe if JavaScript has static typing, TypeScript will not be so much needed anymore. And one more thing is signals. I believe this is the way we will get reactivity in the native language soon. Or proxies, let's see, but a reactive construct in the language will be introduced, I think, sooner than later. Then we have the front-end frameworks. We have React dominating by far since 2015, I think. Yes. It's by far the first, followed by Vue and Angular, and then Svelte, if I'm not mistaken. The gap is quite big, so yeah, React is dominating. What is interesting to see, in order, our goal is to predict the future at the end. So satisfaction and positivity is 2 great indicators on what things will become later on. React is declining a bit, but still 75% is a strong number. Vue is going up, so we should expect usage of Vue to raise, and Angular as well, but still it's a bit lower. And then we also have Svelte, strong over time. I will also show you meta frameworks. I'm very fan of meta frameworks. By far, the first one is following the same pattern. Next, which is based on React, is the first one. Next is second with Astro, hand in hand. Satisfaction is very interesting here because Next is losing a lot of traction. Next is losing a lot of traction to Next and Astro. Astro satisfaction is crazy, 94%. It's a huge number. One more thing that I want to say, it's about build tools. We have Webpack dominating a lot over time, but Vue is rising, Vite is rising a lot. If you see this graph, it's crazy how much it raised over the last years. And if we see the satisfaction is going really down, so yeah, while Vite is 90–80%, that's a crazy number. So if I had to guess, the future of this graph, it's probably Vite overcoming Webpack in the next survey, which is about to be released in a couple of months. So yeah, let me get back to it. I had some screenshots just as a backup. This is more or less some indicators about the future. Satisfaction is very good. If we like something, probably we'll start using it more. It's the same as Internet Explorer. We didn't like it. Everyone was using it. It eventually died. Maybe in the future this will happen again with the same pattern that we saw now with Webpack and Next. I want to say about state management, there is a great talk tomorrow at 12, I think, or 11 from Fotis about this topic. So I will not get deep into this, but for a long time we were doing state in the same global state, which apparently is a terrible idea. We found out the hard way. Server state, we started using it as, treating it as a first-class citizen. It's very important to do state right in order to have a maintainable application. So yeah, tomorrow I will be here for sure. You should be too. UI state, either component or global, it's very hard to distinguish, but still try to keep it local if you can. Only go to a global store if you want to have your reusable part of your applications. Component libraries, we spend a lot of time with Bootstrap dominating front-end development. Nowadays, headless component libraries are on the rise, which for me, they make a lot of sense. You get the functionality without all the styles, so you have to implement the styles yourselves, but you don't have to implement all the functionality, and you get accessibility out of the box and many things that are really nice to have. I believe this will be around in the future as well, so something to invest if you can. Design systems as well. It's the component library with all the guidelines on how to use your components, how to use your tokens, how to use documentation on how to use everything, how to do handovers between developers and designers. Yeah, very happy. What I'm not happy is how we do large scale nowadays. Micro-frontends, I think, is something we can improve on, especially if you introduce them prematurely. You can see a lot of problems that can be introduced with how you do routing, how do you share state between micro-frontends, how do you make a performant micro-frontend architecture. All of this, I think we can improve going forward. I think build tools will help us on this takeover, and Vite will start helping us a bit more on how to take those decisions. Accessibility is very important as well. It's now mandatory if you are in the European Union to have an accessible website. Everything new has to be accessible, which is a sad thing to do, that we have to make it accessible. We should be doing this ourselves, but still it's a step to the right direction, I think. Don't wait for your boss or your PM to start telling you. It's our responsibility. The first step is semantic HTML, which we should be doing as front-end engineers anyway. So yes, I think it's our responsibility to have an accessible web, and we should start investing on this more. The browser landscape is way different than in 2010. Chrome is dominating. Internet Explorer is below 5%. Apparently, it's a really good browser nowadays, but I still have trust issues. I'm very happy with Chrome. It works really well for me. It's a bit concerning that it's becoming a monopoly. So far, so good, but maybe in the future we will start to have issues, but still a better experience for sure than having to support Internet Explorer 5. And of course, we have to talk about AI. This is me sometimes. But not all the times. I'm not against AI for sure. It's a great companion. It helps a lot with repeated tasks, with scaffolding, with refactoring, finding bugs as well nowadays. It's a really good companion. It's built into IDEs nowadays, so it's very easy and very intuitive to work with AI as a developer. We should embrace them. I have a concern though. This is mostly on articles that I read a lot on Medium. I see a pattern that there is a good idea, that's more or less 20% of the article, that I visited the article to read. Then there is a 70% that it's fluff or padding on top of that idea, and if you remove it, actually the content is the same. And then we have a 10% that makes zero sense. And this pattern, I started to see the same pattern in the code as well, unfortunately. The more I use the code, and the more, since all my team is using it, I start to see that. First of all, it does things very not simple enough. And then makes some things that make no sense. One example is cursor URL. This went viral recently. You can give a cursor the access to do anything, to run commands. And for some people, it deleted production databases, it deleted file for this, from the file system, which is a bit concerning. So yeah, be aware of what you are giving access your IDE to do. One more thing, this is a post-mortem, a screenshot from a post-mortem we did internally recently at Preply. Don't rely too much on tests written from AI, especially if it also wrote the code as well, or at least be a very, very good code reviewer if you do. Maybe sometimes, most of the times, it tests the bugs on the code, and they pass, but the production is broken. This is a way to track the models, the latest models. lmarina.ai is the website. This changes a lot. This is a screenshot from last month, but any of them, it's really solid. I think whatever choice you made, you will be in good hands. Which leads us to the future. This is why you are all here. We spend a lot of time to get the context. I also sneaked in some predictions along the way if you were paying attention. So one thing we know for sure, things will change. New things will emerge. Existing libraries that we use every day will evolve. And many things that we use today will not be around going forward. This is the only thing that we know. This is what Heraclitus said many years ago, ta panda ri in Greek. The first candidate for change is, of course, JavaScript. I believe that static typing is long overdue. We need to have the ability to write static code in our code bases. I believe sooner or later in the next 15 years we'll find a way to the JavaScript language itself, which will probably make TypeScript obsolete. Then reactivity, I think a construct like signals will find also the way to the language itself. I'm not a big fan of signals. I think proxies make more sense, but they don't work in primitives. So something between maybe, but still a reactive construct will be available to us soon. Another thing, templating. I believe the existence of JSX is a big failure of the language that doesn't provide us something to do it ourselves. So I think something similar will find the way into the language soon. I hope it's not JSX. But yeah, one way or another, we will be able to do templating and DOM updates efficiently. We will also have the ability to have reusable UI components into the language. This might be either JavaScript or HTML. The way web components worked, it was a bit awkward. They didn't really talk to the frameworks that we have nowadays. They were not reactive. So a lot of problems there, but I think going forward we will improve and working with them will be easier and more widespread. Another thing that I think it will happen, I don't think this is the way we'll write code in 2040, but I think at some point we will have the ability to include React code in Vue and Vue code in React and any other framework. This is already possible, but it's not. It's very awkward. We basically include every dependency. I think at some point we'll have a common bridge between the frameworks that they can talk to each other. Again, I don't believe this is the way forward, but this will happen at some point because, again, 15 years is a lot of time. Which leads us to the question, which framework will be leading in 15 years from now? We have the big three, React, Vue, and Angular. We have many things in our blind spots, of course. We saw in the past that this is very common to have something new emerging and taking over. My opinion on this topic is very strong, and I believe nobody will be around in 15 years from now. And let me explain with a simple example. Let's imagine a card, that we have a card with a total that we calculate, basic math here. It's 40. If we change one of the variables, it's still 40 if we try to access total. This is the basic thing that we're trying to solve with reactivity. All of these frameworks are often an over-engineered solution to solve this basic problem. It's not as simple as it looks. Back in the jQuery days, we had a lot of trouble. We had a lot of bugs because this is the main issue. But Visual DOM, JSX, React Sagas, all of these things, I think it's an over-engineered solution to solve this basic problem. And because I believe in JavaScript we will have reactivity soon, I believe we will not have the need of React and Vue and Angular going forward. What we'll probably need, though, it's meta frameworks. There is a most common misconception that meta frameworks are doing server-side rendering. And if you try to do server-side rendering yourself, you know that it's a very painful thing to do. But they are not doing only that. They are taking a lot of decisions for us, for routing, data fetching, how do you do the deployments, and they have a rich ecosystem around them that solve a lot of problems for us and makes our life easier. So I think all those topics will be around going forward. We will have meta frameworks on our side, and we will have some patterns to follow. So instead of asking the question, do I need, as a company, React or Vue, we will ask the question, what problem am I actually solving? Am I building an e-commerce site? Am I building a social network? Am I building something simple, like a to-do application? All of these require different solutions. There are different problems. So we will have meta frameworks. Maybe it's not different meta frameworks. Maybe it's one modular one that will decide for us all the way from the database to the CDN on how to do this optimal. Maybe it will be modular. We can change things if we want, but it will be something to follow, a pattern to follow, a guideline. One more thing, that writing code was never the bottleneck, especially in the AI world that writes a lot of code for us. Writing code was never the issue for us. Reading code is important, and many more concepts that I have listed here. I think these are timeless concepts that if you invest today, they will be around going forward. So yeah, it's good to invest time on them, on things like semantic HTML and accessibility, CSS architecture, state management, again, very important to have a reasonable state management architecture. Performance, ship less JavaScript, it's always a good thing. Commoditization, I think we will have a modular architecture as well. Separation of concerns, don't mix CSS and JS, maybe. Security, don't get hacked, it's important sometime. And collaboration with designers and other developers will be very important. So having the skill, it's a skill, you can improve it. Writing documentation is something that you can become better, and you should. One more thing, design to code. There is already a plugin for Figma that from the design you can take the React code directly. It doesn't really work well. It works, it's not perfect. I believe going forward in 2040 it will be much better, so maybe we will start exporting more and using it more. So we'll have a standoff with designers. Are they doing coding? Are we doing design? This will be something to decide going forward. Another thing that I want to explore, future without JavaScript. I don't think it's possible, but again, I believe that jQuery is the future, so maybe it's worth spending some time on this. A good candidate to replace JavaScript is Rust. It's already possible to run Rust. It's a bit not the most developer-friendly language, but still it's very performant if you know it. So this is a good candidate. Then we have Go. It's not popular at all on front end, but since Chrome is controlled from Google and Go is also controlled from Google, maybe we have something. If we could write Go natively in the browser, maybe we would. I know I would. So this is another good candidate. Then we have diagrams. At school, we learn how to code with pseudo diagrams, like on the right. Maybe we could run this directly into a compiler. Maybe that's another interesting way. This is actually how game development is working nowadays. Then we have jerking, the screenshot at the bottom. Hope it's visible. This is how, if you have a good product owner, this is how they hand over the features to you. And then maybe if we could run this natively and implement a component using this Snippet, it will be something interesting to explore. And last thing, natural language. Instead of coding, we prompt like we do now with AI, and this will somehow be compiled and run directly without having to convert it to JavaScript in between. These are all interesting ideas. Again, I don't think JavaScript is something that is going away, but I wanted to explore a bit. One more thing, browsers. I was afraid that this slide will be outdated by the time I present, because I think this is about to happen very, very soon. I think the same way that IDs got revamped and we have now AI next to us for everything that we do, I think that soon we will have the same with the browsers as well. This is actually a screenshot from Commit, which was released, and many users already are very happy with it. But it's a bit expensive, so I don't think it justifies. But going forward, I think it will be more affordable, and more of us will start using an AI-powered browser soon. Then we have devices. The same way we didn't expect to have mobile as our primary device many years ago. Maybe there is something out there that will replace desktop. VRs, I think, will be much more accessible going forward. Nowadays, it's a bit awkward. There is basically a 2D experience inside the 3D world. But maybe we will figure out how to do interfaces more efficiently going forward, and who is the better to write those interfaces than us, front-end developers. Something more to have in mind. Last thing I want to explore a bit is how AI is helping us or not helping us. I'm a bit skeptical about how much we use AI, because brain is a muscle. The more you use it, the smarter you become. The less you use it, it decays. So relying too much, I find myself relying too much on AI nowadays, and it's something concerning. I try to either write code or the test myself, not let it write everything, so I keep myself sharp and mixing it sometimes. I also try not to use it on Mondays, which is not going well so far, but still is a concern I have. Don't rely too much. Have it as a copilot. Embrace, of course, is a great tool to embrace, but don't lose your mental capacity and don't become obsolete yourself. That was everything. I have to close with the survival kit I promised. First of all, invest on the principles and the fundamentals of front-end engineer. Don't become a React or a Vue developer. Become good in fundamentals. Make sure you have the state correctly. It's very important to have a maintainable application. Understand when to use server state, when to use a library like React Query, when to do global state, when to do a provider. All of these are very important. Have performance in mind. Don't ship something just because you have code and you found a cool third-party library. The less you code, the less you ship, the faster your experience will be. Have accessibility in mind. It's very important. It's our responsibility once more. We have to make web accessible. It's now by law, but still it's our, don't expect your boss to come to say to you to make it accessible. It's our responsibility to do. Embrace design system. They make a big difference in the quality of the application. You can tell that the application is using the design system because everything is coherent, everything looks and feels more or less the same. So I believe all of this will be around going forward. And embrace AI. It's a very good companion to have on your side. It helps a lot. Don't rely too much, but still embrace it. That was everything. Thank you so much. Θα κάνουμε ερωτήσεις. Δεν έχω και πολλή ώρα, αλλά... I will be around for questions. If you have something now, I think we're almost out of time. Do we have any questions? I don't think we have any questions anyway. So I will be around today and tomorrow. So thank you so much. See you around.